I have been looking at free Black communities and their relationship to the Underground Railroad for 10 years. I have been moving around the country thinking about how Blacks operated on the borders, how Blacks operated in community, how we operated through the Black church, how we operated through the Black Convention movement, how we operated through the Freemasons, through literary societies, through all of these different organizations. How are we coming together? How are we convening? How are we thinking about freedom? How are we thinking about each other? How are we thinking about our families? What I always say is if land were desirable and it's high, Blacks are going to be low. If what's desired is wet land, we'll be dry. If dry land is desired, we'll be wet. We are always, almost always on marginalized land, and when you use maps and topographic maps, you can almost, without any other tool other than the topography, start to theorize about where you're going to find African Americans in the landscape. Prominent participants representing Black churches or the Free and Accepted Masons routinely interacted with Underground Railroad operatives at Black conventions and major gatherings, providing information connecting rural families to the larger world. These people open their homes so that the home becomes a political site, and that when we're talking about where we're going to find these women, every time they open their homes, we know that it is in cooperation with their husbands, that they are not unilaterally opening their home. It is a process of partnership. The movement operated inside of other organizations and denominations, commonly gathered at yearly meetings, at conventions, at synods. Members from distant locales intermingled and perhaps formulated strategies. As we look across and start to understand how all of these organizations and people are working together, we have to look at the landscape. We have to look at where they came from. We have to look at their denominations. We have to look at who they went to school with. We have to look at how they're traveling, what they're doing, what they're saying. All of these things come together. And when we move outside of the conventional texts and start to make our own connections, because you can't do it by just using the minutes from one and the minutes from the other, but when you come back and infuse this with a family history and infuse this with all of these other kinds of landscape-based arguments that I'm talking about, we will have a rich narrative, and at the center of it, and with so much help from these minutes, mercifully now transcribed and digitized, we will begin to make these much deeper and broader connections that we haven't been able to see before.